Admiral Dong-Soo Kim stood on the bridge of the flagship Harmony, looking out at the stars through the big window. Behind him, 12 human ships moved through space like a small city traveling between worlds. 50,000 people lived on these ships. They were families with children, scientists who studied new things, and workers who built machines. All of them had one dream: to find a new home far from Earth where they could live in peace. Dong-Soo had been in space for 30 years, but this mission felt different. These were not soldiers or explorers. These were normal people who wanted to start fresh on a new planet. The Kepler 442 system waited ahead of them. The planet there had water and air that humans could breathe. It would be perfect for their new colony. Captain So-Min Park worked at her station on the science ship Discovery. Her job was to watch for danger and study new things they found. The Discovery flew at the front of the fleet like a guard dog protecting its family. So-Min had done this work for 15 years, and she was very good at it. Today, something felt wrong, but she could not say what it was. The space around them looked empty and quiet. No other ships moved here. No planets or moons could be seen. Just empty black space with distant stars. But So-Min's machine started showing strange readings. Energy patterns that did not belong in empty space. Waves of power that seemed to hide behind nothing. "Admiral Kim," So-Min said into her radio, "I am seeing something odd here. Energy readings that make no sense." Dong-Soo looked at his own screens. "What kind of energy, Captain Park?" "Unknown type, sir. Very strong, but hidden somehow. Like something big is trying not to be seen." Before Dong-Soo could answer, the space around them exploded with light. Hundreds of alien ships appeared from nowhere. They were black and sharp like knives made of metal. Red lights burned along their sides like angry eyes. The ships were bigger than human ships, and there were so many of them that they blocked out the stars. The alien fleet surrounded the human ships in seconds. Dong-Soo had never seen ships that could hide so well. These aliens had technology far beyond what humans could build. His heart started beating fast, but he kept his voice calm. "All ships, this is Admiral Kim. We are surrounded by unknown vessels. Do not fire weapons. Repeat, do not fire. Try to communicate." Engineer Soo-Jin Yang worked in the engine room of the Harmony. When the alien ships appeared, all her machines started screaming warnings. The alien ships were charging their weapons, big weapons that could destroy human ships easily. Soo-Jin had studied alien technology before, but these ships used power sources she had never seen. "Admiral," Soo-Jin called on the radio, "their weapons are charging. Energy levels are massive, much stronger than anything we have." Pilot Hae-won Choi flew a small fighter ship near the fleet. She was supposed to scout ahead and look for danger. Now she found herself staring at an alien armada that could destroy every human ship without trying hard. The alien ships moved like hunters surrounding prey. They were not here to talk. "This is Pilot Choi," she said on the radio. "The alien ships are moving into attack positions. I count over 300 vessels. We are badly outnumbered." On the largest alien ship, War Commander Thekmore looked at the human fleet through his red eyes. The humans looked weak and small. Their ships were slow and their weapons were pathetic. Thekmore belonged to the Vex Empire. The Vex had conquered many worlds and destroyed many species. They believed that weak races should die so strong races could grow. "These humans think they can travel through our space," Thekmore said to his officers. "They think they can take planets that belong to the Vex Empire. Today they learned that the galaxy belongs to the strong." The Vex ships opened fire without warning. Beams of red plasma shot across space and hit the human ships. The first ship to die was a transport carrying 5,000 families. The plasma beam cut through its hull like paper. The ship exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the darkness. Admiral Dong-Soo watched in horror as his people died. The alien attack was not a battle. It was murder. They were killing families and children without mercy. His training told him to retreat, but there was nowhere to run. The alien ships surrounded them completely. "All ships return fire," Dong-Soo ordered. "Protect the civilian vessels." The human warships shot their weapons at the aliens, but their missiles and lasers did almost nothing. The alien ships had shields that stopped human weapons easily. More plasma beams reached out and more human ships died. Each explosion meant thousands of people were gone forever. Captain So-Min Park tried to get her ship away from the battle. The Discovery was not built for fighting. It was made for studying new worlds and finding new life. But the alien fighters were too fast. They caught up to her ship and fired their weapons. So-Min felt the Discovery shake as plasma beams hit the hull. "This is Captain Park," she said on the radio as her ship burned around her. "Discovery is hit. Engines are failing. Tell my family I tried to warn everyone." The Discovery exploded a few seconds later. So-Min Park died doing her job trying to protect others. Engineer Sujin Yang ran through the corridors of the Harmony as the ship shook from enemy fire. People were screaming and trying to find escape pods. Children cried for their parents. The ship was dying, and Sujin knew it. She reached the escape pod bay and started helping families get into the small ships that could carry them to safety. "Hurry!" Sujin shouted over the noise. "Get everyone into the pods, women and children first." But safety was an illusion. The alien ships were hunting the escape pods too. Sujin watched through a window as alien fighters shot down the small pods one by one. The aliens were not just destroying the ships. They were making sure no humans survived at all. Pilot Haewon Choi flew her fighter between the alien ships trying to distract them from the escape pods. Her small ship was fast, but it could not do much damage. She fired her weapons at the aliens knowing it would probably not help. At least she could try to save some people. "Any human ship that can hear me," Haewon said on the radio. "The aliens are hunting the escape pods. They want to kill everyone. This is not a battle. This is genocide." Admiral Dong-Su realized that his fleet was lost. Most of his ships were already destroyed or burning. Thousands of his people were dead. The alien ships were too strong and too many. But he could still do one thing. He could make the aliens pay for their cruelty. "All remaining ships, this is Admiral Kim," he said on the radio. "Retreat to the asteroid belt. Save who you can. I am going to ram the alien command ship." Sujin Yang heard the Admiral's message as she climbed into an escape pod with a group of children. She knew what he was planning. The Admiral was going to sacrifice himself to give others a chance to escape. It was brave, but it was also desperate. The Harmony turned toward the largest alien ship and accelerated to full speed. Admiral Dong-Su sat alone on the bridge as his ship rushed toward the enemy. He thought about his wife back on Earth and his daughter who would never see her new home among the stars. War Commander Thek Moore saw the human ship coming straight at him. The human admiral was trying to ram his command vessel. It was a desperate move that would not work. Vek's ships were too strong to be damaged by a human ship. But Admiral Dong-Su had one more surprise. Just before impact, he detonated his ship's engines. The explosion was not big enough to destroy the alien command ship, but it was big enough to damage it. The blast created a hole in the alien formation and gave some human ships a chance to escape. 3 human ships made it out of the battle: the transport New Hope, the science vessel Explorer, and the small warship Defender. Together they carried 847 people. That was all that remained of 50,000 humans who had dreamed of a new home. Engineer Sujin Yang found herself on the Explorer with 200 other survivors. Pilot Haewon Choi was on the Defender with her fighter squadron. Commander Jae-wook Lee commanded the Defender and was now the highest-ranking officer left alive. The 3 ships limped toward the asteroid belt, while behind them the alien fleet finished destroying everything human. The Vex ships shot down every escape pod they could find. They blew up pieces of human ships to make sure no one was hiding inside. They wanted to erase every trace that humans had ever been here. As the survivors reached the safety of the asteroids, they looked back at the place where their fleet had died. The space was full of wreckage and bodies floating in the darkness. Families they had known were gone. Friends they had grown up with were dead. Their dream of a peaceful colony was destroyed. Commander Jae-wook Lee stood on the bridge of the Defender and made a promise. The aliens thought they had destroyed humanity. They thought humans were weak and could be killed easily. They were wrong. The survivors would hide and grow strong. Then they would make the aliens pay for what they had done here. 6 months had passed since the day the aliens destroyed the human fleet. Commander Jae-wook Lee stood inside a hollowed asteroid, looking at the new home they had built from desperation and anger. The asteroid was big enough to hide 3 ships and house 800 people. They had turned it into a secret base that the aliens could not find. The survivors had changed during these months. They were no longer the peaceful colonists who had left Earth dreaming of a new world. Their faces were harder now, and their eyes held darkness that came from watching their families die. Children who had played games before now learned how to repair weapons. Scientists who had studied stars now figured out how to build bombs. Engineer Sujin Yang worked in the deepest part of the asteroid base. Around her were pieces of alien technology that they had collected from the battle site. Broken weapons, damaged ship parts, and computer systems that still held secrets. Sujin had spent every day for 6 months trying to understand how the alien machines worked. Their technology is at least 50 years ahead of ours, Sujin explained to Commander Lee. But it is not magic. I can figure it out given enough time. The alien weapons used plasma energy in ways humans had never seen. Their shields could stop anything humans could shoot at them. Their engines could make ships appear and disappear like ghosts. But Sujin was learning their secrets piece by piece. Dr. Bo-Ra Kim worked in another part of the base studying alien biology. She had alien bodies that they recovered from destroyed ships. The aliens called themselves the Vex, and they were not. Like any life form humans had ever seen. They had tough skin like armor and red blood that burned like acid. The Vex have enhanced nervous systems, Bo-Ra told Lee during one of their meetings. They react faster than humans, and they are much stronger. But I think I found something important. Bo-Ra had discovered that Vex brains worked on specific frequencies like radio waves. If humans could find the right frequency, they might be able to disrupt Vex thinking. It was just a theory, but it gave them hope. Pilot Hae-Won Choi spent her time modifying human fighters to be more like alien ships. She had learned to make human ships harder to detect by copying alien stealth technology. Her modified fighters could hide among asteroids and strike without warning. The survivors had also learned that they were not alone. While hiding in the asteroid belt, they had picked up radio signals from other parts of the galaxy. The signals were not human, but they were not Vex either. There were other species out there, and some of them were fighting the Vex too. We are getting messages from at least 12 different alien species, reported Communications Officer Taemin Seo. Most of them are asking for help. The Vex have been destroying civilizations across the galaxy for hundreds of years. Lee studied the star maps showing where the Vex had attacked. Dozens of worlds were marked with red, indicating that all life there had been destroyed. The Vex were not just conquerors. They were exterminators who believed that only they deserved to exist. How? Many species have they completely wiped out? Lee asked. At least 30 that we know of, Timon answered. Maybe more. The Vex do not just defeat their enemies. They erase them from existence. This knowledge made the survivors even more determined. They were not just fighting for revenge anymore. They were fighting to prevent the Vex from destroying every other species in the galaxy. Humanity might be small and weak, but they refused to give up. Strategic analyst Mi Young-han had been studying Vex battle tactics from recovered data. The aliens fought in rigid formations using overwhelming force. They expected their enemies to surrender when faced with superior numbers. They had never learned to fight against an enemy that refused to stay defeated. The Vex have one major weakness, Mi Young explained to the Leadership Council. They cannot adapt quickly. They use the same tactics that worked for hundreds of years. If we can surprise them with something they have never seen before, we might have a chance. The survivors began planning their first strike back against the Vex. They had been watching alien supply convoys that moved through their sector of space. The convoys carried weapons and supplies to Vex outposts. If they could destroy one convoy, it would hurt the aliens and give humans more technology to study. Intelligence Officer Won-Ho Park had been monitoring Vex communications. The aliens used encrypted radio signals, but human computers were slowly breaking their codes. Won-Ho had identified a convoy route that would pass near their asteroid base in 2 weeks. The convoy has 6 ships, Won-Ho reported. 4 cargo vessels and 2 escort fighters. They will be carrying plasma weapons, shield generators, and computer cores. It was a tempting target, but also very dangerous. If the attack failed, the Vex would know that humans were still alive. They would search every asteroid until they found the base. The survivors would all die, just like their families had died 6 months ago. Commander Lee made the decision that would change everything. We attack the convoy. It is time to show the Vex that humans are not extinct. The preparation took 2 weeks. Sujin modified their weapons to fire new types of ammunition that might penetrate Vex shields. Hae-Won trained pilots in hit-and-run tactics that would let them strike fast and escape. Bo-Ra worked on the frequency weapon that might disable Vex crews. On the day of the attack, 12 human fighters launched from the hidden base. They were led by Haewon in her personal ship that she had named Ghost. The fighters moved silently through the asteroid field toward the convoy route. The Vex convoy appeared exactly when Won-Ho had predicted. 6 alien ships moving in a tight formation through empty space. They showed no signs that they knew humans were nearby. The aliens thought they had killed everyone 6 months ago. "All fighters, this is Ghost Leader," Haewon said quietly on the radio. "Remember the plan. Hit hard and get out fast. Do not try to be heroes." The human fighters attacked from 6 different directions at once. They fired missiles enhanced with alien technology and beams powered by new energy sources. The Vex escort ships were caught completely by surprise. The first Vex ship exploded before its crew could react. The second ship tried to turn and fight, but human fighters swarmed around it like angry insects. The cargo ships tried to run, but they were too slow and too big. But the most important part of the attack was not the ships they destroyed. It was the message they left behind. As the last Vex ship died, Sujin activated a special transmitter that sent a signal to every Vex frequency in the sector. "This is Commander Lee of the human survivors," the message said. "You thought you killed us, all 6 months ago. You were wrong. We are still here, and we remember what you did to our families. You should have finished the job because now we are coming for you." The message was broadcast on every Vex communication channel. Every alien outpost in 3 star systems heard it. The Vex learned that day that humans were harder to kill than they had thought. Back at the asteroid base, the survivors celebrated their first victory. They had destroyed 6 Vex ships without losing a single human fighter. More importantly, they had recovered alien technology, computer cores full of information, and cargo containers filled with advanced weapons. Sujin immediately began studying the new alien technology. The Vex computer cores contained star maps, showing alien outposts and patrol routes. There were also technical manuals that explained how Vex weapons and shields worked. "This is incredible," Sujin told Lee as she went through the recovered data. "I now understand how their plasma cannons work. I can build weapons just as powerful using the materials we have here." Dr. Bo-Ra found something even more valuable in the alien computer cores: medical data about Vex biology and detailed information about their nervous systems. Her theory about frequency weapons was correct. She now knew exactly what frequency would paralyze a Vex warrior. "I can build a weapon that will disable their entire crew," Bo-Ra explained excitedly. "One device could shut down a whole ship by knocking out everyone inside." The attack had given them more than just technology and information. It had given them confidence. The survivors realized that they could fight back and win. The Vex were not invincible gods. They were just another alien species that could be beaten by humans who refused to surrender. News of the attack spread quickly through alien communication networks. Other species that were fighting the Vex began trying to contact the human survivors. Messages came from crystalline beings called the Ashek and cybernetic warriors called the Corinth. All of them wanted to know more about the humans who had struck back. "We are getting communication requests from 30 different species," Taemin reported. "They all want to form an alliance against the Vex Empire." Commander Lee realized that humans had become something they never expected to be. They were no longer victims hiding in the darkness. They had become a symbol of resistance that inspired others to fight back. But the victory also brought new dangers. Vex patrols in the area increased dramatically. Alien ships searched every asteroid and scanned every piece of space debris looking for the human base. The survivors had to be more careful than ever. "They are hunting us actively now," Won-Ho warned during a strategy meeting. "Before they thought we were all dead, so they ignored this sector. Now they know we are here somewhere." Lee looked around the room at his fellow survivors. The message came through on a frequency that humans had never used before. Communications Officer Taemin Seo almost missed it because the signal was so strange. It was not like human radio or even like Vex communications. This message seemed to sing through space like music made of mathematics. "Commander Lee!" Taemin called excitedly. "You need to hear this. We are getting a message from someone new." Commander Jae-wook Lee rushed to the communication station in their asteroid base. For 1 year, they had been fighting the Vex alone except for scattered messages from other species. Now someone was trying to make real contact with them. The message played through their speakers in a voice that sounded like crystal bells ringing. Human survivors, this is Speaker Zeth of the Ashek Collective. We have heard of your strike against the Vex convoy. Our crystal ships are coming to meet you. Lee felt excitement and worry at the same time. Making contact with alien allies could help them fight the Vex, but it could also reveal their location to enemies. They had survived by staying hidden. Opening communication was dangerous. Send a reply, Lee decided. Tell them they can meet us at coordinates that I will provide. Not here at our base, but at a neutral location. 3 days later, human ships met alien vessels in empty space far from their hidden base. The Ashek ships looked like they were made of living crystal that sparkled with inner light. They were beautiful, but also clearly powerful, with weapons that glowed like captured stars. Speaker Zeth appeared on their communication screen. The Ashek looked like a tall humanoid made of blue crystal with eyes that burned like small suns. When Zeth spoke, the words came with musical tones that made human ears ring. "Greetings, human warriors," Zeth said. "We have watched your species fight the Vex with interest. You are small and weak, but you do not surrender. This impresses us greatly." Lee felt slightly insulted by being called small and weak, but he understood that the alien was trying to compliment human courage. "We fight because we have no choice. The Vex murdered our families and destroyed our colony fleet." "Yes, we know of this attack," Zeth replied. "The Vex have done the same to 43 other species in the past 500 years. They believe that only Vex deserve to live in this galaxy." The meeting continued for several hours as both sides shared information. The Ashek had been fighting the Vex for over 200 years, but they had never been able to do more than defend their own worlds. The crystalline aliens were powerful, but they fought alone. "We do not understand cooperation. Like humans do," Zeth explained. "Each Ashek is a complete individual. We do not work together naturally like your species does." That was when Lee realized something important. Humans had a skill that other species lacked. They could bring different groups together and make them work as one team. Even before the Vex attack, humans had been good at forming alliances and building coalitions. "What if we could change that?" Lee asked. "What if humans could help different species work together against the Vex?" Over the next few weeks, more alien species made contact with the human survivors. The Corinth were cyborg warriors who had merged their biology with advanced machines. The Helix were energy beings who lived inside specially built robot bodies. The Thane were insect-like creatures with natural armor and poisonous claws. Each species had been fighting the Vex alone and losing slowly. They were all strong in their own ways, but they could not coordinate their efforts. The Vex Empire was too big and too organized for any single species to defeat. Strategic analyst Mi Young-han studied the situation and saw the possibilities. "Every species has different strengths," she explained to Lee. "The Ashek have powerful weapons. The Corinth have advanced technology. The Helix can move through space without ships. The Thane are perfect ground fighters." "And humans?" Lee asked. "Humans can make them all work together," Mi-young replied with a smile. Commander Lee made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. He called for a meeting of all the species that were fighting the Vex. The meeting would be held in the asteroid belt where humans could ensure security. Representatives from 12 different species came to the secret meeting. Some arrived in crystal ships, others in mechanical vessels, and a few came as pure energy that had to be contained in special devices. They all had one thing in common. They hated the Vex Empire. "For too long we have fought alone," Lee addressed the assembly. "Each of our species is strong, but the Vex are stronger. They defeat us by fighting us one at a time. That ends today." The aliens looked at each other with suspicion. Many of these species had never worked together before. Some had even fought wars against each other in the past. Getting them to cooperate would be almost impossible. But engineer Sujin Yang had prepared a demonstration that would change their minds. She had spent months working on a new weapon based on technology from multiple species. Human engineering, Ashek energy crystals, Corinth computers, and Helix power sources had been combined into something amazing. "This is what we can build when we work together," Sujin announced as she activated the device. The weapon created a beam of energy that could penetrate any known shield and destroy any known armor. It was more powerful than anything any single species could have built alone. The aliens stared at the demonstration in shock. Impossible, whispered a Corinth engineer. Our technology cannot do this alone. Neither can ours, added an Ashek scientist. But together we have created something beyond what any of us imagined. The demonstration convinced the aliens that cooperation was worth trying. They formed the Remnant Alliance with Commander Lee as the military coordinator. Each species would contribute their best technology and warriors to the common cause. Dr. Bo-Ra Kim had been working on her frequency weapon during this time. With access to alien technology, she had made it much more powerful. The new device could disable Vex crews across multiple ships at the same time. I call them silence bombs, Bo-Ra explained to the Alliance Council. One bomb can shut down an entire Vex fleet by overwhelming their nervous systems. Intelligence Officer Won-Ho Park had been studying Vex communications with help from alien codebreakers. Together, they had cracked the deepest levels of Vex encryption. What they found made everyone afraid. The Vex are planning something called the Final Cleansing, Won-Ho reported grimly. They want to sterilize every planet in the galaxy, except their own worlds. The timeline has been moved up because of our resistance activities. The Vex Empire had decided that other species were too dangerous to be allowed to exist. They were building a massive fleet to destroy every non-Vex world in the galaxy. The plan would take 2 years to complete. But when it was finished, only Vex would remain alive. How many ships are they building? Lee asked. Over 10,000 vessels, Won-Ho replied. More than all our fleets combined. The news was terrifying, but it also unified the alliance completely. Every species now understood that they would either work together or die separately. There was no middle ground and no time for petty disputes. Pilot Haewon Choi had been training pilots from different species to work together. It was not easy because each species flew differently and used different tactics, but slowly they were learning to coordinate their attacks. Human pilots are natural leaders in the air, reported a Corinth squadron commander. They adapt quickly and make decisions that save lives. The Alliance began planning their first major operation together. Instead of small raids, they would attack a Vex shipyard where part of the Final Cleansing fleet was being built. The attack would require perfect coordination between 12 different species. This will be the test, Lee told Mi Young as they finalized the battle plan. If we can work together to destroy one shipyard, we can work together to save the galaxy. The Vex shipyard was located in a heavily defended system with patrol fleets and orbital weapons. Getting close enough to attack would require stealth technology from multiple species. The assault itself would need every type of weapon the Alliance could provide. Ashek crystal ships would provide long-range bombardment with their energy cannons. Corinth vessels would jam Vex communications and hack their computer systems. Helix energy beings would infiltrate Vex ships and disable them from inside. Thane boarding parties would capture key facilities, and humans would coordinate it all while contributing their own special talents. Human engineers had built new weapons. Human pilots would lead mixed squadrons. Human strategists would adapt the plan as the battle developed. The attack began at dawn in the target system. Alliance ships appeared simultaneously in 12 different locations around the Vex shipyard. The aliens were caught completely by surprise as crystal beams and plasma cannons opened fire from every direction. But the most devastating part of the attack came from Bo-Ra's silence bombs. The frequency weapons shut down Vex crews across the entire shipyard. Alien warriors found themselves fighting empty ships that could not fight back. The battle lasted 6 hours and ended with the complete destruction of the Vex shipyard. 300 partially built ships were destroyed, along with all the construction facilities. It was the Alliance's first major victory, and it proved that cooperation could defeat the Vex Empire. More importantly, the attack had been broadcast across the galaxy on frequencies that every species could receive. 2 years had passed since the massacre of the human colony fleet, and Admiral Jae-Wook Lee stood on the bridge of the battleship Retribution, looking out at the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. More than 5,000 ships from 60 different species stretched across space like a metal constellation. At the center of this armada flew the human survivors who had started it all. Only 600 humans remained alive from the original 800 who had escaped the first attack. 197 had died in battles across the galaxy as they fought to build the Alliance. But those 600 survivors had become something the galaxy had never seen before. They were the backbone of a military force that made the Vex Empire tremble. Engineer Sujin Yang worked in the construction bays of a massive space station that the Alliance had built in secret. Around her, alien workers assembled warships using technology from dozens of different species. Sujin had scars on her arms from an explosion during the Battle of Kepler Station, and her left eye was artificial after she was injured boarding a Vex cruiser. "The new Vengeance-class ships are ready for testing," Sujin reported to Admiral Lee. "Each one is armed with weapons that can destroy a Vex dreadnought in a single shot." The Vengeance ships were Sujin's masterpiece. They combined human engineering with alien technology to create vessels that seemed to phase in and out of reality. Their hulls were made from Ashek crystal that could absorb enemy fire and redirect it back at attackers. Their engines used helix energy cores that made them faster than any Vex ship. But the most terrifying part of the Vengeance ships was their main weapon. Sujin had scaled up Bora's silence bombs into cannons that could disable entire fleets from long range. One Vengeance ship could shut down 100 Vex vessels without firing a single explosive shot. Fleet Commander Haiwan Choi led what the galaxy now called the Ghost Squadron. Her pilots had survived so many impossible battles that enemy species believed they were supernatural beings who could not be killed. Haiwan herself had been shot down 16 times, and each time she had somehow survived and made it back to friendly territory. "Ghost Squadron is ready for the final assault," Haiwan reported during the morning briefing. "We have fighters from 20 different species all trained in human tactics." The Ghost Squadron was no longer just human pilots. Ashek crystal beings flew alongside Corinth cyborgs and Thane insect warriors. They all used fighting styles that Haiwan had developed based on human unpredictability and alien technology. Dr. Bo-Ra Kim had moved beyond just studying Vex biology. She now created weapons specifically designed to kill Vex warriors. Her laboratory produced viruses that could dissolve Vex armor and gases that could poison entire ships. Bo-Ra's weapons were so effective that Vex soldiers had started wearing sealed suits to protect themselves. "The new bioweapons are ready for deployment," Bo-Ra announced. "One canister can clear a Vex battleship in minutes." Strategic analyst Mi-Young Han had become famous across the galaxy as the human who could predict Vex movements before they happened. Her battle plans were studied at military academies on dozens of worlds. Enemy commanders feared facing forces, led by Mi-Young because she always seemed to know what they would do next. "Intelligence confirms that the Vex are massing their final fleet at their homeworld," Mi-Young reported. "They have over 10,000 ships defending Vex Prime. It will be the largest space battle in galactic history." The Vex Empire had realized that the Alliance was becoming too powerful to ignore. They had pulled ships back from frontier worlds to defend their core systems. The final cleansing plan had been abandoned because the Vex needed every vessel to protect themselves. Supreme War Leader Gorth Kex commanded the Vex defense from his massive flagship domination. He had replaced the previous Vex commanders who had all failed to stop the Alliance advance. Gorth Kex was known for his ruthlessness and his refusal to show mercy to any enemy. "The humans and their pets think they can challenge the Vex Empire," Gorth Kex told his officers. "Today we show them the price of defying the supreme species." But Gorth Kex was worried despite his confident words. The Alliance had technology that the Vex could not understand. Human ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Their weapons ignored Vex shields, and their tactics made no sense. Worst of all, the humans seemed to get stronger every time they were hurt. Intelligence Officer Won-Ho Park had spent 2 years infiltrating Vex computer networks. He now knew more about Vex military operations than most Vex commanders did. His spies had provided detailed maps of Vex Prime's defenses and the locations of their most important facilities. The Vex have 3 orbital defense platforms around their homeworld. Won-Ho briefed the Alliance command staff. "Each platform has enough firepower to destroy our entire fleet. We need to take them out first." Admiral Lee studied the tactical displays showing the Vex homeworld. It was the most heavily defended planet in the galaxy, with enough weapons to fight off any conventional attack. But the Alliance was not planning a conventional attack. "We will use the same tactics that have worked before," Lee announced. "Hit them from multiple directions at once. Make them defend everything so they cannot concentrate their forces anywhere. The plan was typical of human military thinking. Instead of attacking the strongest points, they would strike at dozens of weak points simultaneously. The Vex would be forced to spread their defenses thin, trying to protect everything. Communications Officer Taemin Seo had been coordinating with resistance groups inside Vex territory. Many species that had been enslaved by the Empire were ready to rebel when the Alliance attacked. The Vex would face enemies from inside their own territory as well as the Alliance fleet. 17 slave species have confirmed they will rise up when the attack begins, Taemin reported. The Vex will have to fight a war on multiple fronts. The Alliance fleet moved toward Vex space in 3 separate groups. Each group contained ships from multiple species and was commanded by human officers who had learned to coordinate alien fleets. The 3-pronged attack would force the Vex to split their defenses. As they traveled toward the final battle, Su Jin worked on her most ambitious project yet. She was building a weapon that could end the war in a single strike. It was based on the computer virus that Wanho had developed to hack Vex systems. But Su Jin's version would do more than just steal information. I call it the Plague, Su Jin explained to Admiral Lee. It is a digital virus that will spread through every Vex computer network. Their own ships will turn against them. The virus was designed to rewrite Vex computer systems and turn their weapons against their own forces. Every Vex ship that tried to connect to their fleet network would become infected. The more ships they had, the faster the virus would spread. Dr. Bora had contributed biological components to the digital virus. If Vex crews tried to manually override their computers, the virus would release toxins into the ship's air supply. The Vex would find themselves fighting their own technology while being poisoned by their own ships. 3 days before reaching Vex Prime, the Alliance received a message from the enemy homeworld. Supreme War Leader Gorth Kex appeared on their communication screens wearing his full battle armor and surrounded by his most elite warriors. "Human animals and alien pets," Gorth Kex snarled. "You think you can challenge the might of the Vex Empire? Come to our homeworld and we will show you the same mercy we showed your colony fleet 2 years ago." Admiral Lee replied personally to the Vex message. He appeared on screen wearing the simple uniform of a human fleet officer. Behind him stood the command crew of the Retribution representing 6 different species working together. "War Leader Gorth Kex," Lee said calmly. 2 years ago you murdered 50,000 innocent humans, including women and children. You thought you had destroyed us completely. You were wrong. Lee paused and looked directly into the camera. "We are no longer the peaceful colonists you attacked. We are something you created through your cruelty. We are the force that will end your empire and bring justice for every species you have murdered." The message was broadcast throughout Vex space and picked up by every resistance group in the Empire. Enslaved species heard a human promising to free them. Vex soldiers heard an enemy who sounded completely confident of victory. As the Alliance fleet entered the Vex system, alarms began sounding on every Vex ship and station. The defense platforms powered up their massive weapons, while patrol fleets moved to intercept the attackers. The space around Vex Prime filled with energy, as both sides prepared for the final battle. Admiral Lee stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the Vex fleet deploy for battle. 10,000 enemy ships arranged themselves in perfect formations around their homeworld. It was an impressive sight that might have frightened other species. But Lee remembered the day 2 years ago when Admiral Dong-Soo Kim had sacrificed himself to give the survivors a chance to escape. He thought about Captain So-Min Park, who had died trying to warn everyone about the ambush. He remembered all the families who had been murdered without mercy. "All ships, this is Admiral Lee," he announced on the Fleet Communication Network. "Today, we finish what the Vex started 2 years ago. Today we show the galaxy that genocide has consequences." The Battle of Vex Prime began with a silence that stretched across space like the moment before lightning strikes. 10,000 Vex ships hung in perfect formation around their homeworld, while 5,000 Alliance vessels approached from 3 different directions. For a few seconds, the 2 largest fleets in galactic history simply stared at each other across the darkness. Then Admiral Jae-wook Lee gave the order that would change everything. "All ships open fire!" The space around Vex Prime exploded with Weapons fire as both fleets unleashed everything they had. Plasma beams and crystal cannons lit up the darkness while missiles and energy torpedoes streaked between the battling ships. The noise was so loud that it could be heard on the planet's surface, even through the atmosphere. Supreme War Leader Gorth Kex watched the battle from his flagship domination and felt confident despite the impressive Alliance attack. The Vex had superior numbers, and their ships were arranged in defensive positions that should have been impossible to break. His weapons were already destroying Alliance vessels. The humans have made a mistake, Gorth Kex told his officers. They attack us at our strongest point. Today we finish what we started 2 years ago. But engineer Sujin Yang's plague virus was already spreading through the Vex fleet network faster than anyone could stop it. Vex computer systems began turning against their own crews as the digital infection rewrote their programming. Ships that had been firing at Alliance vessels suddenly turned their weapons on other Vex ships. "What is happening?" Gorth Kex demanded as he watched his own fleet begin destroying itself. "Why are our ships firing on each other?" His communications officer tried to explain, but the words made no sense. "Sir, our computer networks are being rewritten by some kind of virus. The ships think other Vex vessels are enemy targets." The virus spread exponentially as more Vex ships tried to connect to their fleet network for coordination. Each new connection infected another vessel and turned it against its allies. Within 30 minutes, half of the Vex fleet was fighting, the other half while the Alliance continued its advance. Fleet Commander Hae Wan Choi led the Ghost Squadron through the chaos of Vex ships destroying each other. Her mixed-species pilots struck at the orbital defense platforms while the enemy fleet was distracted by its own civil war. The platforms were powerful, but they had been designed to fight external threats, not fast fighters attacking from multiple angles. "Ghost Leader to all squadrons," Hae Wan called on the radio. "The platforms are trying to target us, but their computers are infected too. Press the attack while they are confused." Ashek crystal fighters fired concentrated energy beams at the platform's shield generators while Corinth stealth ships delivered boarding parties to critical systems. Thane warriors cut through Vex defenders with their natural weapons, while human pilots coordinated the complex assault. Dr. Bo Ra Kim watched from the medical bay of the Retribution as her bioweapons were deployed against Vex ships. The toxins she had created specifically for Vex biology were being delivered by Helix energy beings who could pass through ship hulls without being detected. Entire Vex crews were collapsing as their ships filled with poisonous gases. Strategic. Analyst Mi Young Han coordinated the three-pronged Alliance advance while adapting to the chaos caused by the plague virus. The original battle plan had assumed they would face organized resistance, but now the Vex fleet was destroying itself. She had to prevent Alliance ships from accidentally attacking infected Vex vessels that were now fighting on their side. "All Alliance units, this is command," Mi Young broadcast. "Vex ships with blue engine signatures are infected by our virus. Do not fire on blue-tagged vessels. Let them continue attacking red-tagged enemies." Intelligence Officer Wan-Ho Park monitored Vex communications as their empire collapsed around them. Panic messages were coming from every Vex outpost and colony as the virus spread beyond the fleet to civilian networks. The Vex were experiencing the same terror they had inflicted on other species for hundreds of years. "Admiral, the virus has reached Vex colonies throughout their empire," Wan-Ho reported. "Their entire civilization is turning against itself." On the surface of Vex Prime, the infected orbital platforms began firing at the planet itself. Massive energy beams that were meant to defend the homeworld started destroying Vex cities and military installations. The population fled in terror as their own weapons turned against them. Supreme War Leader Gorth Kex realized that his empire was doomed. The Alliance had created a weapon that turned Vex strength against itself. The more powerful their technology, the more destructive it became when infected. He made a desperate decision to abandon his flagship and flee to the planet's surface. "All remaining loyal ships retreat to the surface," Gorth Kex ordered. "We will make our final stand on Vex Prime itself." But most of his fleet could no longer receive orders. The infected ships continued fighting each other while Alliance forces advanced toward the planet. The space battle that should have lasted days was ending after only 6 hours with complete Vex defeat. Admiral Lee watched the destruction of the Vex fleet with mixed feelings. The virus was more effective than anyone had hoped, but it was also more terrible. Thousands of Vex ships were burning in space and their crews were dying just as human families had died 2 years ago. "Sir, we are receiving a surrender signal from one of the Vex command ships," Communications Officer Taemin Seo reported. Lee looked at the tactical display showing the few Vex ships that were still under crew control. Most of the enemy fleet was either destroyed or infected. The survivors were requesting permission to surrender rather than continue a hopeless battle. "Tell them they can surrender by powering down their weapons and submitting to boarding," Lee replied. "Any ship that tries to run will be destroyed." The Alliance fleet moved into orbit around Vex Prime, while ground forces prepared to land on the planet. The orbital platforms had been captured or destroyed, and the Vex fleet was no longer a threat. All that remained was to capture the Vex leadership and end their empire forever. HFY led the atmospheric assault with fighters and dropships carrying Alliance ground troops. The Vex had military bases on the surface, but many of them had been damaged by their own infected orbital weapons. Resistance was lighter than expected because Vex ground forces were in chaos. "Landing zones secured," HFY reported. "Vex ground forces are surrendering or retreating. We have clear paths to their capital city." The Alliance ground assault was led by human officers commanding mixed species units. Ashek crystal warriors provided heavy firepower, while Thane insect soldiers cleared buildings with their natural weapons. Corinth cyborgs hacked Vex computer systems, while Helix energy beings scouted ahead invisibly. Dr. Bora had modified her bioweapons for ground combat. Instead of lethal toxins, she used chemicals that would knock out Vex soldiers without killing them. The goal was to capture as many Vex leaders as possible for war crimes trials. "Non-lethal agents deployed in the government district," Bora reported. "Vex officials should be unconscious but alive for capture." Supreme War Leader Gorth Kex made his final stand in the Vex Imperial Palace surrounded by his most loyal guards. He had expected to die gloriously in space battle, but instead found himself hiding in a building while alien soldiers advanced through his capital city. When Alliance troops reached the palace, Gorth Kex was brought before Admiral Lee in chains. The Vex leader looked at the human who had destroyed his empire and tried to understand how such a small, weak species could have accomplished so much. "You have one human," Gorth Kex said with bitter respect. "But you do not understand what you have done. The Vex Empire was not evil. We were protecting the galaxy from something much worse." Lee studied the defeated alien leader and wondered what he meant. "What could be worse than genocide?" Gorth Kex looked toward the edge of the galaxy with fear in his red eyes. "They come from beyond the galactic rim. We called them the Devourers. They consume entire star systems and leave nothing behind. The Vex Empire was built to fight them when they return." "You expect me to believe that mass murder was justified?" Lee asked coldly. "We tried to unite the galaxy under Vex leadership so we could stand together against the real threat," Gorth Kex explained. "But other species were too weak and divided. We had to eliminate them to save the strong." Lee felt a chill as he realized that Gorth Kex might be telling the truth. The Vex archives that Wan Ho had captured contained references to something called the Great Hunger. Ancient records spoke of darkness coming from beyond the stars, but it did not matter what the Vex had been trying to prevent. Their methods were unforgivable, and their victims deserved justice. Lee made his decision about the fate of the Vex Empire. "War Leader Gorth Kex," Lee said formally, "you are charged with genocide against 43 species and the murder of billions of innocent beings. The Alliance finds you guilty and sentences you to death." The execution was carried out immediately using methods from the species that the Vex had tried to exterminate. It was justice for all the families and civilizations that had been destroyed by Vex cruelty. With their leadership dead and their fleet destroyed, the Vex Empire collapsed completely. Their remaining colonies surrendered to Alliance forces while their military surrendered or fled to distant sectors.